Iran's mysterious caves. Every year, archaeologists find hundreds of artifacts. To find the truth and unravel what's left to us from our ancestors, the Crew of Archaeology Mystery of History program, together with scientists, are investigating objects found on site of historic events. Watch our program and get ready for exciting discoveries.
Every city has its own story. Just like people, cities have age. They can be young or old. Taraz is one of the oldest cities in Kazakhstan. Throughout the history, the city changed its name. It was known as Talas, Taraz, Yani Taraz, Namangan, Koshe, Auliyata, Mirzayan, Jambil. Deciphering each title, we dive into the 2,000 years long history of the city. This is the ancient Taraz. The settlement is located in the center of the modern Taraz. It was the center of the steppe section of the Great Silk Road. The Silk Road was a trade and diplomatic artery as well as liaison between Eastern and Western cultures. The history of this medieval city is filled with mysteries. We are writing research articles, reach public through radio and television. We share the history of our city as one of a sacred land. Along with ancient Rome, ancient Taraz is an everlasting city. This year, the city celebrates its 2100 years anniversary. Throughout the history, it was known as a scientific, cultural, crafts and trade center of a huge Eurasian continent. According to the Chinese written sources, ancient Taraz had become one of the largest cities on the Silk Road by the 7th century. It was known as the City of Merchants. The heydays of the history of Taraz began during 9th and 10th centuries. The location itself served as the basis for its consistent economic and cultural development. The city is situated in the center of a rich agricultural valley, next to the silver mines of the Talas Alatau. Al-Maqsidi, an Arab traveler, wrote in the 10th century, "Taraz is a large fortified city, has many gardens, with deep ditches around it. The city has 4 gates. There are smaller towns in the surrounding areas. A large river flows in front of central gates to the city. There are houses on the other bank of the river too. The river has several crossings. Mosques are built in between bazaars where Kipchak people bring camels, horses and sheep to sale, exchange furs, processed furs and other things for grain, fabrics, utensil, weapons and ammunition." The ancient city was the subject of many studies. For example, a research of academician Alkay Margulan has proven the ancient origin of Taraz, based on the works of French and Russian scientists. The first written records of the existence of the city date back to the 7th century. It was then when Chinese pilgrim, a Buddhist monk, Xuanzang, traveled through these areas. He wrote that one of the major cities of the Turkic Khanate was located on the Talas river bank. The city is not just commercial, but also cultural, educational center. Merchants from many countries stop here and sell all kinds of goods, wrote Xuanzang in his book. Ancient city of Taraz has a rich background filled with various historical events. The city was conquered by the Arabs in 751. In 766, it was added to the lands of Karluk Khanate. In the end of the 9th century, it was subjugated by the Samanids. It used to be a capital of Turgeshes, Karluk, and then Karakhanid states. It is assumed that the mint of the ancient city of Taraz was already functioning back in 13th century. Numerous Turgesh copper coins were found on the territory and surroundings of former city. Coins have a square bore. There is no information as to where they were minted. What is known for sure is a stamping during the Karakhanid period. These archaeological finds indicate the 10th, 12th centuries were the period of the rapid development of the ancient city. In 1212, Khwarezm Shah Muhammad destroyed the city so that Mongols couldn't have it. The city was rebuilt in the mid-13th century. William Rubruk, who passed through Taraz in 1253, mentioned this in his notes. The city was the part of the Chagatai Ulus of the Mongol Empire in 13th-15th centuries. In the 16th century, Taraz had become one of the cities of the Kazakh Khanate. There are sources that describe the flourishing city of the year 36 BC, with the flag rising above the indestructible fortress, with refined streets crowded with playing children, that was destroyed first by the Karakhanids people and later by the Mongols. They killed all those who had remained there, including them in the number of those who were killed by them before. And nothing of those beautiful gardens and tall castles was left, nothing but ruined walls and traces of the vanished people, states the ancient source. It also states that the enemy cut off the head of the governor of the city and hung it in different areas of the major cities of China. This act was apparently done in order to demonstrate the strength and power of Karakhanids people. Throughout the following years, centuries really, Taraz had endured many trials, vanishing and yet being revived again. Every time, regardless of any disasters, the city was rebuilt in the same place. Following the changes of the names of the ancient city, one can draw a complete image of its fate. Such, in 1856, it was called Auliya-Ta. The city received this name in honor of Karahan, the founder of the Karakhanid dynasty. Since 1936, the city was called Mirzayan in honor of the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Kazakhstan, Levon Mirzayan. In 1938, the city was renamed to Jambil in honor of the Kazakh poet and bard Akın Jambil Jabayev. It was only after gaining the independence by the presidential decree of the 8th of January 1997 the city regained its original name.
13 ғасырдан бастап моңғол шапқыншылығынан кейін қала.
After the Mongolian invasion in 13th century, the total area of the city had decreased by 3 times. Since 1864, Taraz gets continuous attention of scientists. It was still called Auliya-Ta fortress back then. As you may remember, a small division under the command of Colonel Chernyaev seized the Auliya-Ta fortress in the course of subduing the territories of Central Asia by the Russian Empire. At the same period, Vasily Kalaur, who was serving as chief of Auliya-Ta district, became interested in the historical past of the region. Kalaur was collecting information from the old residents of the city and proved the ancient origin of Taraz, pointing out the need to study the ancient mausoleums. After that, Pyotr Lerch, an Oriental archaeologist, got interested in historical monuments of the ancient city. Military engineer of the Tsarist army, Lavrentiev, made the first topographical map of the city. The annals of the city that survived physical destructions, invasions, years of the Great Tribulation, known as Aktaban Shebarandy in the history of the Kazakh nation, is not finished yet. Great Firdausi, the star of the Oriental poetry, was praising the greatness and sanctity of Taraz. Listening to these lyrics gets your mind into the medieval city where life is bustling at its finest. Traders everywhere, craftsmen weave carpets, glass blowers create true pieces of art, blacksmiths made unique jewelry.
Taraz қаласының көп кезеңдері болады.
The history of Taraz can be divided into several periods. We would like to focus more on the period of prosperity, which was revealed during archaeological excavations carried out from 2011 to 2015. One of them took place in 6th-9th centuries. During that time, Taraz was the capital of the Western Turkic Khanate. The second period took place in 10th-13th centuries. This is the time when Taraz was the capital of the Karakhanid state. Our findings provide evidence to the fact that during this period, the city experienced the highest growth. It was actively developing economically and culturally. In the course of archaeological excavations, it was made clear that 2,000 years ago, our ancestors were building large cities, were smelting metal, producing ceramic ware, and constructed complete water supply system. Taraz is the oldest monument of the Great Silk Road connecting Europe and Asia. We should not forget that the medieval city has made a significant contribution to the economy and culture of the Turkic world. There is a strong belief among the people that the first scales were invented in ancient Taraz. In some scientific publications, it is stated that the name Taraz might actually come from Tarazi, which literally translates as scales. It was the consonance of words that led to the emergence of such hypotheses. According to some sources, a distinguished poet Sheikh Ahmed Tarazi lived here.
1895 жылы сол уақыт
An archaeology enthusiast club was founded in 1895 in Tashkent, which at the time was the capital of Turkestan military province. One of the members of the group was Professor Vasily Bartold. Orientalists studied the history of the medieval city, relying on the memories of witnesses. It was he who first determined the location of the ancient Taraz and suggested that this place was once a center of science and culture, crafts and trade. For a long time, studying the history and culture of the settlement was deprived of the archaeologists' attention. It was because scientists did not suppose that a modern city, particularly the territory of the central market, can conceal the remains of the once large commercial, cultural center underneath. Architectural complexes dating from different periods have been discovered in the course of archaeological excavations that continue to this day. Residents of modern Taraz were more than surprised when, during the construction of a meat market in the 70s of the last century, they found ancient busts of 11th-12th centuries. These were 7 rooms with domes and floor heating system, original water pipe system, decorated with ornamental tiles and murals.
кешенді түрдегі зерттеу жұмыстары бұл 2011
Extended archaeological excavations were conducted in 2011-2015, resulting in finding the main street of the ancient city. The water system was found as well, namely pipes connected to the upper reaches of the Talas River. Such engineering systems are testimony of the high level of development of urban culture. Another unique archaeological finding was the furnace found in the quarter of the artisans. The furnace is designed for ceramics, characterized by original design of the dome with air supply pipe, which allows maintaining high temperature. Inside the building, not far from the furnace, few vessels as such were found, without any ornament. Big amount of glazed and unglazed ceramics items were found in the course of the excavations. Most of it was made using potter's wheel and high-quality clay and finally fired. The same spot contained round window glasses of light green, olive and pink color, as well as templates to make female jewelry. Small items made of bone and animal horns. For example, findings include objects made of deer antlers dating back to the 11th century. The fine artistry of a skillful master can be seen in shapes of candlesticks and metal lamps. These exhibits certainly are priceless and represent the cultural heritage of the ancient Turks. Lands of the Jambul region between Shu and Talas rivers are storehouse of historic places and events. In 2014, 5 historic sites of Jambul region were registered as World Cultural Heritage Sites by UNESCO. These are ancient settlements Aktobe, Kulan, Ornek, Kostobe and Akurtas. There was a time when random people would excavate these areas, plundering our shared historical heritage. Different people from different countries were coming to get their share. It is unknown what have they found, what they took away from here. Back in those days, common people were afraid of those who dealt with digging out graves and tried to avoid them. As a result, today, the legacy of the ancient Turks decorates museums of other countries. Just recently, I was listening to the interview with the director of a museum in London, who said that in the Oriental Art Hall of the Royal Museum, there are exhibits found during excavations of the ancient Taraz. The ruins of the ancient city preserve the history of thousands of our ancestors' generations. The time to explore them has finally come. Extensive archaeological excavations began in 2011 and continue to this day. Today, the medieval town attracts attention of numerous tourists. An open-air archaeological museum was launched to celebrate the 550th anniversary of the Kazakh. The ancient Taraz Park is going to become an international tourist brand of the region. The plan is for this facility to be visited by guests of the Expo 2017 exhibition.
Jibek жолының бір қасиеті бұл еш уақытта жаңағы басқыншылықтың, жаугершіліктің жолы болды.
One of the features of the Great Silk Road is that while it existed, there were no wars, conflicts or clashes. It was the road of mutual enrichment, interaction of Eastern and Western cultures, a kind of a dialogue of civilizations. Taraz was one of the hubs of this great road. The caravans from distant lands stationed here to exchange goods, communicate with local people, and get familiar with our Turkic culture.
Арғы тегіміз ата-бабаларымыз бен түркітектес халықтар сол тұстағы өмір сүрген. Солармен жаңағы тауарларын алмасқан, басқа да жаңағы мәнді, мәдениетті қарым-қатынаста болған мекен.
In 1999, UNESCO decided to have a world celebration of the 2000 years anniversary of the city. Taraz was revived again. According to the general plan of development of the city, its architectural monuments will constitute a single memorial complex, which harmoniously combines old and new. The uniqueness of Taraz will always attract tourists. Through its history, Taraz had shown the world that the Kazakhs are one of the most ancient nations, which has rich cultural background. Several monuments of Taraz are still waiting for their time to be reborn and to stand before the admiring eyes of our contemporaries.